The late October rain fell in thin, cold needles across the Chevron station just off I-5 in Tacoma, Washington. 8-year-old Ethan Ramsey had his forehead pressed to the foggy passenger window of his mom's dented 2009 Corolla, tracing the streaks the rain left behind with one finger. "Mom, can we get hot Cheetos?" he asked, the same way he asked every single time they stopped for gas, even though he already knew the answer. Sarah Ramsey, 34 going on 50, glanced at him in the mirror. Her scrubs were still on from the night shift at St. Joseph's, her ponytail half fallen out, her eyes ringed with the purple of someone who hadn't slept more than 4 hours straight in 2 years. "Not today, baby," she said, forcing warmth into her voice. "We got cereal at home. Cocoa Puffs, your favorite." Ethan just nodded. He was good at not pushing. Good at wearing the same hoodie 2 days in a row because the washer was broken again. Good at pretending he didn't notice when Mom cried in the bathroom after hanging up with the collection agency. Sarah stepped out to pump gas. $27.11 in her checking account. Payday was 4 days away. The electric bill was already red-flagged. Ethan's attention drifted past the pumps to the far corner of the lot, where 6 Harleys had just rolled in, engines rumbling like distant thunder. The riders wore black leather cuts, rain beating on the patches. A grinning skull with wings, bottom rocker that read Washington. Most people in Tacoma knew who they were, the Reapers MC. Not the friendliest bunch, but not the worst either. They kept the meth labs out of certain neighborhoods and ran the biggest toy ride in the state every Christmas. Ethan wasn't looking at the riders. He was looking at the man in the gray rain jacket, moving between the bikes. Hood up, head down, moving too fast for the weather. Something about the way the man kept checking over his shoulder made Ethan's stomach feel funny. The man crouched by the first bike. His hand disappeared under the frame near the front wheel. Ethan had spent last summer at his Uncle Ray's shop, handing him tools while Ray fixed bikes for half the clubs in Pierce County. Ethan remembered Ray cursing about some asshole who sliced brake lines on a brother's Dyna. How the guy lost his leg when the front end locked at 60. The man in the gray jacket moved to the second bike. Same motion. Ethan's heart started hammering against his ribs. He unbuckled before he could talk himself out of it and shoved the door open. "Ethan, stay in the car," Sarah called, but he was already running, sneakers slapping wet pavement. 6 huge men turned as a soaking wet kid in a Too Big Avengers hoodie sprinted straight at them. "Don't start your bikes." Ethan yelled, voice cracking with terror and determination. "There's a guy, he's cutting your brake lines. I saw him. He's doing all of them." The laughter died instantly. A giant of a man with a red beard and a patch that read President, Gravedigger, took 1 step forward. Rain dripped from his beard like blood. "Kid, what the hell did you just say?" Ethan pointed with a shaking finger. The man in the gray jacket had frozen mid-crouch beside bike number 4. When he realized every eye was on him, he bolted. "Prospect, Reaper, grab that fucker." Gravedigger roared. 2 younger members took off like sprinters. The hooded man didn't make it 10 yards before he was tackled hard into a puddle. Sarah reached Ethan and yanked him behind her, ready to fight the entire club if she had to. "I am so sorry he doesn't—" "Ma'am." Gravedigger cut in, voice suddenly soft. He crouched, bringing himself down to Ethan's level. "What's your name, little man?" "Ethan." "Ethan, I'm Gravedigger. You just saved 6 lives, maybe more. You understand that." Ethan swallowed hard. "My Uncle Ray said if the lines are cut, you crash and die." Gravedigger's eyes flicked up to Sarah, then back to Ethan. "Your Uncle Ray is a smart guy." One of the prospects straightened from the bikes, holding up a box cutter slick with brake fluid. "Clean cuts on 5 of them. Dig." This one still had the cap off the reservoir. Another 30 seconds, and he'd have had all 6. The air changed. The easy chatter was gone. These were men who'd seen war, some literal, some on the streets, and they recognized attempted murder when they saw it. Sarah's knees went weak. Gravedigger stood, rain pouring off his cut. "Ma'am, your boy just kept 6 of my brothers from becoming road pizza. We owe you a debt we can't ever repay. Least we can do is feed you." He tilted his head toward the 24-hour diner attached to the chevron. Roxy makes a mean patty melt. On us. Ethan looked up at his mom with huge eyes. Can we, Mom? Please. Sarah wanted to say no. These were reapers. You didn't know reapers. But her son was shivering, and the way Gravedigger looked at him, like Ethan had just handed him his own life back, made her throat tight. Just dinner, she whispered. Inside the diner, the waitress, Roxy, tattooed sleeves and a voice like whiskey, didn't bat an eye at 6 soaked bikers and a terrified single mom with a kid. Boots 4 and 5 boys. Chocolate chip pancakes of the hero, she asked Ethan with a wink. Ethan's eyes went round. He'd never been called a hero before. While they waited for food, a man with sergeant-at-arms patches and kind hazel eyes slid into the booth across from them. I'm Knox, he said quietly. We need to ask, any reason someone would want to hurt you or the boy? Sarah shook her head. We're nobody. I'm an LPN. Ethan's dad walked out when he was 2. We don't have enemies. Knox and Gravedigger exchanged a look that made the hair on Sarah's neck stand up. Gravedigger leaned forward. Lady, someone just tried to kill 6 of us in broad daylight. Your son is the only witness. That makes you very much somebody right now. Sarah felt the floor drop out from under her. If the story of raw courage, of a little boy who refused to stay quiet, and of outlaw bikers who understand debts deeper than blood, has already grabbed you, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to remember heroes still exist, and subscribe to Bike Diaries. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from tonight, because this one's just getting started. The rain had turned into a hard, steady drum on the diner roof by the time the plates arrived. Ethan attacked his pancakes like they might disappear. Sarah picked at a chicken strip she didn't want. Her stomach knotted too tight for food. Knox slid his phone across the table, so only she could see the screen. A text from an unknown number. Kid and the bitch were at the chevron. Find them. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. That came in 20 minutes ago. Knox said, voice low. Burner phone. But we've got people who can trace it faster than Tacoma PD on a good day. Point is, they already know there was a witness. They don't know it's an 8-year-old yet, but they will. Gravedigger rested his forearms on the table. The wood creaked under the weight. We got a house in Lakewood. Quiet street, fenced. 2 prospects on rotation 24/7. You and Ethan stay there till we clean this up. No rent, no questions, no strings except you breathe easy and let us do what we do. Sarah laughed, a broken sound. I can't just disappear. I have shifts tomorrow night. Ethan has school. Already handled. Knox cut in gently. I talked to your charge nurse, Marla. Told her there's a family emergency and your boy's real sick. She said take the week, paid. We got friends in a lot of places. Sarah stared at him. How did you? Ma'am, Gravedigger said, we've been raising money for St. Joseph's NICU for 6 years. Marla's husband rides with our Tacoma chapter. You've been taking care of our people's babies. Now we take care of you. Ethan looked up, chocolate syrup on his chin. Mom, they have a swing set. Knox said. Sarah felt the fight drain out of her. She was so tired of being strong alone. Just until it's safe, she whispered. The Lakewood house was small, blue with white trim, and smelled faintly of pine cleaner and motorcycle oil. A prospect in his early 20s named Levi stood on the porch smoking. AR. 15 slung casual across his chest like it was a pool noodle. Ma'am. Little man, he greeted, nodding respectfully. Anybody comes down this street who doesn't belong, they'll meet Jesus before they meet you. That night, Sarah tucked Ethan into a bed with actual matching sheets, not the mismatched thrift store ones they had at home. He was asleep in 30 seconds, one arm around a stuffed bear someone had left on the dresser. Sarah stood in the hallway and cried silently until Knox appeared with a bottle of Jack and 2 plastic cups. Porch, he said. Levi's got the house. You need 5 minutes to fall apart where your kid can't see. They sat on the top step. Rain hissed in the gutters. I can't pay you back for this, Sarah said, voice raw. You already did, Knox answered. 6 of my brothers are breathing tonight because of Ethan. In our world, that's a blood debt. We don't keep spreadsheets. He poured 2 fingers and handed her one. Drink, then sleep. Tomorrow we make you loud. The next morning, a news van from Como 4 was parked at the clubhouse gates. Gravedigger had called in favors. The story they fed the reporter was 90% true. Brave local boy stops attempted mass murder on motorcycle club members. Mother and child now under protection because of retaliation threats. They kept Ethan's face blurred and used only first names. But Sarah's interview, sitting on the porch swing with Knox standing behind her like a silent sentinel, aired on the 5 and 11 o'clock news. Someone tried to hurt these men, Sarah told the camera, voice shaking but steady. And my son refused to let that happen. If speaking out keeps him safe, then I'll speak as loud as I have to. Within an hour, the threat started. Tell the kid to shut up, or we shut him up permanent. Pictures of the Lakewood house taken from across the street. A photo of Ethan's school, time-stamped that afternoon. Knox showed her the messages on an iPad. Face grim. Good, he said. Every one of these is another nail in their coffin. We got friends at the ATF now. They love when idiots text threats from their real phones. 3 nights later, Sarah woke to the sound of Harleys. A lot of them. She found Knox in the living room, sliding a Glock into the back of his jeans. Stay inside, doors locked. What's happening? We found the guy who cut the lines. Name's Ricky Salazar. Hanger-on with the Los Diablos charter out of Fife. They're the ones pushing meth into our neighborhoods. This was supposed to be payback and a message all in one. Knox's smile was thin and sharp. We're delivering a different message tonight. Sarah never asked what happened in Fife that night. She only knew that by morning, Ricky Salazar was in Tacoma General with both arms broken and a sudden willingness to name names. And the Los Diablos president was on the phone begging for a sit-down. 2 days later, the threat stopped. If you're feeling the weight of what real loyalty looks like, what it means when outlaws decide a little boy and his mama are under the protection, hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to remember that good still fights back. And subscribe, because the best part of the story is still coming. The morning the threats went silent, Sarah stood at the kitchen sink washing the same coffee mug for the 3rd time, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never did. Knox came in around 9. Rain still dripping from his cut, carrying a manila folder and the smell of wet asphalt. It's over, he said simply. Los Diablos folded. Their national charter got wind of them targeting a kid and a civilian woman on television. They surrendered the Fife chapter's colors last night. Ricky and 3 others are in county awaiting felony charges. The rest scattered. You're clear. Sarah set the mug down, so hard it should have cracked. That's it. That's it. Knox's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Sometimes a monster's scarier when the whole world's watching. You and Ethan made it watch. She expected relief to feel like champagne. Instead, it felt like the floor disappearing. Clear meant she had to leave the little blue house. Clear meant going back to the apartment with the broken washer and the overdue notices taped to the door. Clear meant nights alone again, listening for footsteps that weren't coming anymore but still would in her dreams. Gravedigger showed up that afternoon with 2 prospects and a pickup truck. Sarah's heart sank. Eviction day. But when she walked outside, they weren't loading her stuff. They were unloading. New tires for her Corolla. Grocery bags full of name-brand cereal Ethan loved, and she never bought. A flat screen still in the box. And a thick envelope Gravedigger pressed into her hand, like it was no big deal. Inside were keys and a deed. The blue house. Paid off. Title in her name, and Ethan's. Sarah stared at the papers until the words blurred. I can't. You already did, Gravedigger said. Club voted unanimous last night. House was sitting empty anyway. You keep the yard up, help Mama J run the toy ride and the back-to-school drives. Maybe bake those lemon bars for the poker runs. We call it even. Knox added softly. We take care of our own, Sarah. You're ours now. Ethan came tearing around the corner barefoot, holding a helmet almost as big as he was. Knox said I get a ride on the front of his bike to school on Monday. Can I, Mom? Please. Sarah laughed through the tears she hadn't realized were falling. We'll talk helmet laws, baby. The first clubhouse barbecue happened 2 weeks later. Sarah expected to feel out of place among the Harleys and the hard faces. Instead, Mama J, a 5'0" woman with a gray braid to her waist and a voice like a chainsaw, handed her a tray of ribs and said, "Girl, you're late. Sauce is getting cold." Ethan spent the afternoon on Gravedigger's shoulders, wearing a tiny cut the old ladies had sewn for him that read, "Future Reaper" on the back. Knox found Sarah by the dessert table, sliding an arm around her waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Told you once," he murmured against her temple. "We don't do spreadsheets." She leaned into him and, for the first time in years, let someone else carry part of the weight. 6 months flew by in a blur of normal that felt like magic. Sarah dropped the part-time at the hospital because the club paid her to coordinate their charity runs, paperwork, permits, sponsor packets. Real money, benefits, dental. Ethan saw a dentist for the first time in 2 years. The backyard got a new swing set, professional grade, installed by 6 bikers who argue for an hour about whether the slide should face east or west for optimal sun. Ethan learned to ride a dirt bike before he mastered a 2-wheeler with training wheels. And every Sunday, no matter the weather, a different Reaper showed up with groceries or a new video game, or just to sit on the porch and teach Ethan how to throw a punch the right way, little man, thumb outside the fist. One night in April, Sarah came home from the late shift to find Knox on the couch with Ethan asleep against his side, both of them snoring during the credits of some Marvel movie. She stood in the doorway watching the rise and fall of her son's back under Knox's arm and felt something unlock in her chest that she'd forgotten was even locked. Knox opened his eyes, caught her staring, and smiled slow and quiet. "Told you we'd keep you," he whispered. "If this part made you cry, made you believe in found family, in debts that can never be repaid with money, in big scary men who will burn the world down before they let anyone hurt a child under their protection, then do me a favor right now. Smash that like button so hard YouTube feels it. Share this story. And subscribe, because the final chapter of Ethan and Sarah's journey is the one that'll stay with you forever. 1 year to the day after the rain-soaked afternoon at the Chevron, Sarah stood in the backyard of the little blue house that was now theirs in every way that mattered, watching Ethan, 9 years old today, tear across fresh grass on a brand-new XR50 that the club had rolled in at dawn, wrapped in a giant red bough. The yard looked nothing like the overgrown patch they'd moved into. There was a raised garden bed bursting with tomatoes and sunflowers, a regulation-sized basketball hoop bolted to a pole that had once held a clothesline, and a hand-painted sign by the gate that read, "Ramsey Reaper Residence. Trespassers will be adopted and fed until they explode." Knox came up behind her, sliding both arms around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. He still smelled like motorcycle exhaust and the cedar soap he used. "Happy?" he asked, voice low. She turned in his arms, looked up at the man who had quietly, steadily become the center of her universe, and answered with the kind of honesty that only comes after you've survived hell together. "I didn't know this much happy existed. The party started at noon and never really ended. Reapers rolled in from 3 states. Gravedigger fired up a pig in the pit he'd built himself. Mama J brought 7 different kinds of pie. Someone set up a bounce house that was immediately invaded by bearded giants in leather. Ethan rode parade laps around the yard with a line of Harleys, following him like ducklings, every rider going slow enough for the birthday boy to lead. At dusk, the sky turned that deep Pacific Northwest purple, and the string lights Knox had hung months ago flickered on. Gravedigger climbed onto a picnic table with a beer in one hand, and a microphone someone had handed him like it was a grenade. "Shut up, you animals!" he roared. The yard quieted instantly. 1 year ago, a little kid none of us knew ran across a wet parking lot and saved 6 of my brothers from eating pavement at 80 miles an hour. That same kid's mama decided trusting a bunch of ugly bastards like us was less scary than going home to what she had before. Laughter and cheers rumbled through the crowd. Gravedigger raised his beer toward Ethan, who was perched on Knox's shoulders. "Ethan Ramsey, you got stones bigger than most men in this yard. You're blood now, little man. Always will be." Then he looked straight at Sarah. "And Sarah Ramsey, you raised a hero when nobody was watching, and you let us love you both when you didn't have to. We ain't good at pretty words, but we're real good at forever. You're stuck with us." He reached into his cut and pulled out a small black box. Knox set Ethan down, took Sarah's suddenly shaking hand, and dropped to one knee in the grass like it was the most natural thing in the world. The yard went dead silent, except for the crackle of the fire pit. "Sarah," Knox said, voice rough, "I came to keep you safe for a week. Stayed, because I couldn't figure out how to leave. You gave me a family when I didn't know I was missing one. Marry me. Let me love you and that incredible kid every single day for the rest of my life." He opened the box. Inside was a simple white gold band with a tiny diamond end etched on the inside, the words, "Debt paid in full. Love just beginning." Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming, until Ethan launched himself at both of them, screaming, "Say yes, Mom. Say yes." She managed a choked, "Yes," and the yard exploded. Guns fired into the air, blanks, but still terrified the neighbors who'd long ago learned to love the noise. Motorcycles revved in celebration, and someone set off fireworks they absolutely did not have a permit for. Later, when Ethan was finally asleep in his bed under a new Reaper's blanket, Sarah and Knox stood on the porch watching the last stragglers roar off into the night. She leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady thud of his heart under the patch that now read, "SGT at Arms." "Think we turned out okay?" she whispered. Knox kissed the top of her head. "Baby, we turned out legendary." If this story about a broke single mom, a brave little boy, and a motorcycle club that decided love is thicker than blood hit you right in the soul, do all of us a favor. Hit that like button until your thumb hurts. Share this video with every person who needs proof that miracles still happen, and subscribe to Bike Diaries, because we hunt down the stories that remind the world that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather, and sometimes they're 8 years old and afraid, but do it anyway. Drop a comment and tell us, would your kid have run toward the danger like Ethan did? Would you have trusted the Reapers like Sarah did? Real stories, real courage, real family. This is Bike Diaries. We'll catch you on the next one.